My name is Suzanne Wilson and I'm the Head of Library and Knowledge Services at Cumbria Northumberland Tyne and Wear NHS Foundation Trust. I started in this role in 2017 after more than a decade working in knowledge services in NHS Scotland. The Mental Health Trust I now work for covers a large geographic area across the north of England. I lead a team of 8 staff who are all long-serving employees in a mix of professional and paraprofessional posts, delivering a range of library services from 5 locations across the Trust. I've been asked to talk about how we use the skills matrix to contribute to Outcome 4 of the Quality Improvement Outcomes Framework. Outcome 4 is all NHS organisations receive library and knowledge services provided by teams with the right skill mix to deliver on organisational and knowledge for healthcare priorities. We took part in the pilot of the Quality Improvement Standards last year, where I already recognised there was a need to conduct an activity to assess what the right skill mix was for our organisation. By summer 2019, I'd been in post for 2 years, and since I hadn't recruited any of the staff within my team, as they all predated my employment, I wanted to understand if there were skills that weren't being fully utilised and if there were skills gaps across the team that we needed to address. I'd seen something similar done in a previous role and wanted to try it with my team. I was also keen to support training needs my staff might have and wanted to identify areas they were keen to develop in. Some staff found professional development plans were hard to develop given where they were in their career. Alongside this, I had hoped to use the Health Education England Evidence and Knowledge Self-Assessment tool with senior staff in my trust to help understand where they think we could support use of evidence and knowledge across the trust. I hoped this would support development of a gap analysis, identifying areas we needed to develop as a team in order to support the Trust's priorities. More on this at the end. So how did I go about it? I didn't want to develop a matrix from scratch, so I identified the CILIP Professional Knowledge and Skills Base for Health, or PKSB, as a possible option. I asked the team to review their skills against an abridged version of this, which was mainly just the section headings with links to the full version if they wanted to read more about each criteria. I made it clear there was no expectation that any one person should be an expert in every criteria. Far from it. As a team, I hoped there would be a range of skills reflecting different job roles. Everyone scored themselves individually using the 0 to 4 rating scale, where 0 was no knowledge and 4 was expert, and noted their scores against each criteria. At a team meeting, we dedicated some time to reviewing the scores collectively, being careful not to identify anyone that felt they had scored themselves low. We plotted the scores on a chart using stickers against each of the PKSB criteria. I hoped this would help identify any obvious gaps in our collective skills, and individuals would share their scores with me afterwards. At this point, I didn't share my scores with the team, as I felt this would give them a marker to measure themselves against, which wasn't really the point of the exercise. So what did the results show? There were no obvious gaps as I had anticipated. However, through discussion, it was highlighted that some of the library assistants didn't really understand some of the language or terms that were used in the PKSB, terms such as ontologies and metadata. They felt that this was aimed at more professional and qualified staff and therefore didn't give themselves an accurate rating. They also hadn't really thought to ask their peers or look up what the terms meant in advance. In earlier conversations, I was aware that some of my team were dealing with imposter syndrome, the feeling of being a fraud or being found out to not have the required skills for a job. These individuals scored themselves lower than might have been expected. However, with some discussion, some of them decided to amend their scores slightly at the team exercise. At least one member of the team scored themselves higher than expected, rating themselves as an expert in areas that they hadn't previously been involved in. To determine if this was truly untapped talent, we discussed this at a subsequent appraisal and set objectives to draw out these strengths. Although I didn't get the results I anticipated, it did give me some insight into the team. Some sell themselves short in terms of the skills they have. Others think they have a higher level of expertise than they are able to demonstrate in their current roles. Initially, this prompted me to ask myself how individuals measure their own skill level, or against what or who. For example, if a library assistant who rates themselves as an expert, do they realise that there may be people with more knowledge or skill than they have elsewhere in the organisation or nationally? How wide is their awareness of the profession outside of their daily work in the library? Should they be asking themselves the following: am I an expert in the team or in the organisation? Am I an expert within my network or across the sector? How do I compare nationally against the other people in the profession? For some, their day-to-day reach is limited to the library they work in, and in some cases, they frequently work on their own at the library desk. So knowledge of the wider profession is limited to their own willingness to learn. This is bound to impact on how they rate their skill level. In the team exercise, ratings tended to cluster in the middle. This seems to be a safe place for individuals to rate themselves. A score of 2 was a rating that equaled being good, and probably avoids any challenge or question about their ability. Few were willing to say, I have basic knowledge and it's not part of my role, despite me stressing that we didn't all need to be good at everything, as we may be able to draw on expertise elsewhere in our trusts or networks or collectively as a team. The feedback from the team after the exercise was positive. They all said that it was a worthwhile discussion and helped to raise awareness of the skills across our profession, albeit that some of the jargon didn't help. So what have I changed as a result of the exercise? I've used the individual ratings and appraisals for all of my team to underpin discussion about what level of expertise individuals have and identify areas for future development. This has been helpful for those who often struggle to think of new areas they would like to develop in. I've conducted a more comprehensive analysis for my own development and a professional registration process, which has helped to identify areas for me to focus on in my own personal development. So what are the next steps? I'll continue to use the matrix as a basis for future training needs and talent management. This has become important recently in light of vacant posts I have, and I'm hoping it will help to identify the skills we need to strengthen within the team. I would repeat the exercise again in the future to check where we have developed and identify any new areas we need to address. Reflecting on the discussion generated through this exercise, there were some specific areas that I'd like to explore further once the team is back to full capacity. For example, it became obvious that beyond some of my own work, the team had limited use of using collaborative online platforms, and this is an area that could be useful in encouraging others to share and collaborate. I also mentioned earlier that I'd planned to use the Health Education England Evidence and Knowledge Self-Assessment tool to develop understanding of where the organisation expects our skills to lie and map this to the gaps we have in skills within the team. I still intend to do this and hope to use it with some of our strategic clinical networks as a route to gauging organisational needs and ensuring we can support any new areas of work. So although the exercise didn't provide the results I expected, it has been a useful tool to gauge what skills we have and to make the team more aware of the range of skills across the profession. It has provided a marker for us to gauge where we are and a foundation for responding to the future demands of our organisation, which should help with succession planning. I hope this example helps in understanding one way you can progress through the levels of Outcome 4. Thanks for listening.